Hi everybody, and welcome to the flute practice. Today, as promised, I have finally taken out my piccolo and we are going to look at this gorgeous little instrument and how we can practice it, kind of get back into piccolo playing shape. So let's go check it out. Okay, so the first thing to remember about the piccolo is this instrument is just like, a million times smaller than the flute. That's a very gross exaggeration, but everything is just a lot smaller here. So we really need to think a lot more delicately, a lot smaller aperture, and everything we do, every tiny little movement has a much greater effect on this instrument. So a little bit of a note bend here is going to have a much bigger effect than on the big flute or even alto flute, where you kind of have to exaggerate everything. So intonation is very sensitive. Articulation is very sensitive. We can't kind of articulate with the same kind of strength. We got to articulate a little bit more lightly and gently. Before you start practicing very high bits on the piccolo, I'm really seriously going to recommend earplugs. Something that is going to really help just reduce those noise levels. These can just be simple ones you buy in the shop. Those are really great, very effective. If you're in a real desperate situation, go get some cotton wool or toilet paper from the bathroom and just, in band and so on and so forth. You want to protect your ears. So, first thing I'm going to start off with is just a simple scale. Just playing some really simple scales, nice and slowly, just getting this sound kind of going. But not so slowly that you start fretting and fussing about the sound. So, just on a G major scale. You can also do it slowed. Now, if you haven't watched, the videos that I've done on tight embouchure and high notes and stuff like that, maybe you just actually want to go watch those first, because a lot of what we're going to do on this little guy is going to apply. It's a very similar kind of a concept. This is not about blowing harder. It's not about being tight. It's much more about being more forward with the lips, so thinking forward here and more focused here. It's like the feeling of having a straw almost in your lips, and you really imagine the air just coming out the front in a tiny, teensy tiny little straw, rather than we want to think much more forward. And, even there, I took a bit of a risk. I let go a little bit too much, but rather find the spot where you just enough tension than risk being really tight. Take some risks, experiment a little bit with your sound and what you want, and do this while playing a whole bunch of nice, simple, easy scales. Okay, so, done G major, we're now going to go to F major. Maybe you want to play a D minor just to get the low register. And all this while playing your scales nice and slowly, you're starting to just really check in with your intonation and listen out. Where are the little demons on this instrument? Every piccolo is unfortunately very individual. Each instrument has got its own little niggly moments and niggly spots, so you kind of have to experiment with the instrument and figure that one out. You can use a tuner, but remember, tuners are not giving you the relative pitch. They're giving you, the kind of like real equal tempered pitch, which is fine depending on which level you're playing at right now. You're just listening for intonation, slowly starting to kind of like hear any obvious problems. You can carry on going through your scales until you feel like, you kind of get a comfortable note. I have not gone to the third octave yet. So you can go up to C, so maybe you want to do C major. The next thing we're going to do is I'm going to do one of the Reichert daily exercises. You can also just play arpeggios. Those are really great. So maybe you just rather want to play a G major arpeggio, for example. So we're starting to practice the bigger jumps. I like this Reichert exercise just because I feel like I'm getting through a lot more arpeggios in a shorter space of time, and it's kind of like a nice tone exercise as well. It's beautiful vocally. So and so on and so forth. I'm going to post a link to that at the bottom. You can go check it out. You can go play around with this. Just really finding a nice tone exercise. Sometimes it's even nice just to play a piece that you really like, maybe a melody that you really enjoy, and you just want to actually, you know, have some fun with that melody on the piccolo. Okay, once we've done that, I'm going to go on to another favorite exercise of mine, which is from the Della Sonorite from Marcel Moyes. I'm just going to show you the exercise now. If you are having trouble, I mean, you know, it's a book that I would really recommend all of us have somewhere lying in our cupboards, or, you know, maybe on our music stands ready and waiting. It's a really great exercise to do on your normal flute as well, on your, not a normal flute, no, your piccolo and your big flute. So what we're going to do is we're going to start on G. And this is a pattern that's always going to, it's a triplet pattern actually, even though it sounds like a duplet pattern. So it sounds like we're going da, 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 but we're actually going da, 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 da. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. So what we do is we go from G, G sharp, G, A, G, A sharp, G, B, G, C, G. So we're basically moving up a semitone each time, increasing that interval back to G by a semitone. And as I said, doing this in triplets, so we're not getting into da, 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 da kind of a habit. We're rather thinking of one long, smooth line. So. And then getting to the G. You can do this an octave higher as well. Oh, F sharps are nasty. Now as I'm going through, I'm always thinking rather forward and creating the smaller forward than thinking here. And the same thing applies for pianissimo playing on the piccolo, especially in those high registers, rather than thinking this kind of a thing. Thinking. That being said, you know, piccolo is a noisy instrument. You can, with practice, I'm very out of practice as you can hear, but with practice you can learn to play very high, very soft, very gently. But, you know, take it slowly and don't do it by force. Do it by releasing forward. Okay, starting to get into those high registers with that. What you might want to even practice before you do this is just practicing some normal octaves as well, or you can do this afterwards. So I like to, you know, kind of do that, start that exercise and get into those octaves, and then making sure they're in tune. Same with the next octave. Really experimenting with being quite forward there, and you can practice all your other octaves like that as well. So moving G sharp, then A. So really just moving around, playing around with those octaves. Slowly you'll start to feel this is all kind of warming up and you're getting used to it all. And that's kind of when you can start to practice pretty much anything that you play on the big flute. I mean, most of the exercises we've done are exercises that I do on my flute as well. You can play your studies. Obviously when you go down to low C or whatever, you don't play that, but you can play your studies on the piccolo. You can play your pieces on the piccolo. You can really practice almost anything and everything on the piccolo. Cool guys, that was just a little kind of introduction to how I, pick up the piccolo and start practicing and kind of getting used to the instrument again. We will hopefully delve into some more detail soon. Until then, happy practicing. See you next time and enjoy the little guy.